My name is Olivia, and I was born and raised in a small town in the Midwest, the kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and your family's reputation is like a weight tied to your ankle. Either you drag it along, or it drags you. I was the youngest of four siblings, the baby of the family. Growing up, I always felt like I had to earn my place in this tight-knit community. But no matter what I did, it never seemed like I could escape the shadows cast by my older brother, Nathan. Nathan had everything handed to him. He was the golden boy, the one everyone in the family looked to for leadership. When our father retired, Nathan inherited the family business, a small but successful auto repair shop that had been in our family for generations. It was expected. Nathan had always been the practical one, the one who would keep the business running, while the rest of us were just extras. I remember the day our father announced the transfer of ownership. Everyone in the room seemed to sigh in relief, as though they knew Nathan was the only one capable of carrying that weight. And me? Well, I was expected to marry well and settle into a comfortable life. No one ever said it out loud, but it was there, in the quiet moments when they'd glance at me and then quickly look away. The unspoken assumption was that I didn't need to aim too high. Maybe it was because I didn't have Nathan's natural leadership qualities, or because I wasn't as hands-on as my brothers. Maybe it was because I wasn't a boy at all. The thing is, I never wanted what they thought I wanted. I didn't want to live a quiet life on the sidelines. I wanted to build something of my own. I wanted to have a purpose that wasn't defined by my family's expectations. So when I told them I was going to start a business, the reactions were predictable. "What makes you think you can do this, Olivia?" My mother's voice was thick with skepticism as she looked up from the newspaper, her brow furrowed. "You've never even run a lemonade stand. Maybe it's better to stick to what you know." Her words stung, but I wasn't going to let them pierce me. She had always been so practical, never one for dreams or ambition. But it wasn't just her. My father, when he was alive, would simply smile and shake his head when I mentioned my plans. "You've got good ideas, kid, but let's be realistic. Running a business isn't like opening a bookshop." He didn't believe in me either, not in the way he believed in Nathan. And then there was my sister Emma, who always made it clear that I wasn't as important as Nathan. "Maybe you should just stick to what you're good at, planning parties, organizing, that sort of thing." Emma was the one who'd always tell me that my ideas were nice but unrealistic. She didn't mean to hurt me, she just didn't understand that my ambitions were not something I could suppress. Every time I brought it up, their laughter echoed in my mind. "Oh, Olivia's going to start a business. That's cute." That's how they saw me. Cute, naive, too small to dream big. But the more they doubted me, the more my desire to prove them wrong grew. The fire inside me became a steady blaze, one that I couldn't ignore. I spent months researching, planning, gathering what little savings I had. $3,000 in a small account I'd kept from working part-time jobs. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. I wasn't asking for their approval anymore. If they didn't believe in me, that was fine. I would show them. Yet there were still those moments of doubt, especially late at night when I was lying awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was fooling myself. The questions would swirl around me like a storm. Could I really do this? What if I failed? But the truth was, I didn't know how to live without trying, without taking that leap. Sometimes I'd catch myself thinking about the weight of their expectations, the way they'd look at me like I didn't belong in the same room as Nathan. But then I'd remember why I had to do this, for me. I didn't need to be Nathan. I didn't need to follow the path everyone had laid out for me. I needed to carve my own. So I did. I took the plunge, quit my job, and threw myself into building something that would eventually be mine. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew this. I was finally taking control of my own life. And now looking back, I realized something. The weight of their doubt, their dismissal, it no longer matters. What matters is that I've learned to stand on my own 2 feet, and one day they'll have to see me for who I am, not who they wanted me to be. But even now, I can't help but wonder how much of what we do is really for ourselves, and how much of it is just a way to prove something to others. The family betrayal. Everything changed after my father's sudden passing. It was like the earth had shifted beneath me, leaving me struggling to find my balance. The funeral was a blur of sympathetic handshakes and whispered condolences, but it wasn't until the will was read that the full weight of my father's life, and my place in it, hit me. When the lawyer announced that Nathan was the sole beneficiary of everything, my stomach dropped. My father's auto shop, the house I'd grown up in, and even the vacation cabin where we had spent countless summers, everything went to Nathan. I was left with a modest sum in a small savings account, about $5,000, and a stack of old family photographs, memories that seemed suddenly hollow. I had never been naive, but I never imagined it would come to this. My father had always told me that everything was taken care of. He'd always insisted that we were financially stable, that we had nothing to worry about. But in that moment, as the lawyer detailed the inheritance, I learned the truth. My father had been hiding a mountain of debt, $450,000 worth of unpaid taxes, loans, and credit card bills. How could I not have known? I asked Nathan about it after the reading of the will. I was trembling, unsure of how to approach him. The way he shrugged it off, as though it didn't matter, crushed me. "It's fine. You wouldn't understand, Olivia," he said with a dismissive wave of his hand. His words were sharp, and the coolness in his tone felt like a slap across my face. "Just forget about it. Focus on what you're good at." I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but I couldn't find the words. All I could do was stand there, watching as Nathan walked away, completely unaffected, as if the world had simply fallen into place for him. And me? I felt invisible. Everything I had worked for, everything I had believed in, none of it seemed to matter anymore. It wasn't just the inheritance. It was everything. My family had always treated me like an afterthought, but this was the final blow. I had spent my whole life trying to live up to their expectations, trying to be seen, trying to prove that I was worth something. But in the end, I was nothing more than a footnote in their lives. The betrayal deepened when I learned how Nathan and his fiancée, Carly, had been planning their wedding. I had been invited, of course, but I wasn't part of the inner circle. As the wedding day approached, it became clear that my place was more of a token gesture than anything else. When the guest list was finalized, I realized that I hadn't even been included in the list of immediate family for the reception. I was relegated to the list of distant relatives who would be sitting at the back, with no real significance. When the wedding day arrived, I felt the sting of exclusion deep in my chest. The ceremony was beautiful, of course, as weddings tend to be. But as Nathan stood at the altar, his eyes locked on Carly's, it felt like I was just a spectator, an outsider looking in. My mother, Emma, and Nathan's closest friends all crowded around, as if they were the only ones who mattered. And then there was me, awkward and out of place, sitting alone at the far end of the hall, clutching a glass of wine in my hand as if it could numb the pain. But the worst part came during the reception. As the guests were filing in, I overheard a conversation between Carly and one of her friends. "Olivia?" Carly scoffed, her voice thick with disdain. "Why did we even invite her? She's not really family, is she? Just the odd one out. She won't even be able to contribute anything meaningful." The words hit me like a physical blow. I froze, unable to move. The wedding I had hoped would be a moment of connection had become yet another reminder that I was the outsider, the one who wasn't truly wanted, the one who didn't fit in. Carly's words echoed in my head, and the truth of what my family really thought about me settled in like a dark cloud. They had always underestimated me, but now I knew just how far they were willing to go to make sure I knew my place. I wanted to confront Carly, to shout at her for belittling me like that, but I didn't. I couldn't. It wasn't worth it. Instead, I forced a smile, nodded at a few distant relatives, and tried to disappear into the background. But inside, I was breaking. I felt small and insignificant, like nothing I had ever done, no accomplishment I had ever made, mattered in their eyes. And yet, as much as I wanted to retreat into my hurt, something in me snapped. The realization hit me that my family had always treated me this way, dismissing me, pushing me aside, as though I wasn't worth the effort. But I wasn't going to let them define me any longer. I wasn't going to let their perception of me dictate my worth. That night, I sat alone in my room at the hotel, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. The questions spun in my head. Why had I allowed them to do this to me for so long? Why had I thought I needed their approval? But then I realized that I didn't. I didn't need them to believe in me to succeed. I had to believe in myself. And if I wanted to be something, if I wanted to build something real, I would do it, regardless of what they thought. Maybe it was time to stop trying to fit into their mold. Maybe it was time to create my own. But the question lingered in the back of my mind. Could I really do this on my own? Or had I been so deeply ingrained in their world that I'd never truly be able to escape? Initial reaction and emotional turmoil. The days after the wedding felt like a blur, a haze of disillusionment that I couldn't shake off. Everything I had built up inside me, everything I had worked for, seemed to crumble under the weight of betrayal and rejection. The sting of my family's treatment at Nathan's wedding kept echoing in my mind, like a constant whisper reminding me of my place in their eyes. An afterthought, a burden, someone to be ignored. But even though I felt crushed, a part of me refused to let that defeat me. I had spent years in their shadows, fighting for recognition that never came. I was tired of being the other sister, the one who didn't matter, the one whose dreams were always dismissed as too unrealistic. It was like being a ghost in my own life. Every effort, every accomplishment seemed to be erased by their indifference. I remember the early days after the funeral. I stood there, staring at the small savings account balance, the meager $5,000 that was left to me. It wasn't nearly enough to rebuild what I had lost, but it was mine. For once, it was something I could claim for myself, and I was determined to make it grow into something meaningful, something that was solely mine, untethered from the expectations and judgments of my family. I poured every ounce of energy into my business. I remember the sleepless nights, the anxiety gnawing at my insides as I stayed up until the early hours of the morning, drafting business plans, researching competitors, and calculating projections. It felt like building something out of nothing. I had no investors, no safety net, just a small loan of $20,000 from a local bank. My savings, the few $1,000s I had scraped together over the years, were the only things keeping me afloat. There were times when I sat alone in my small, cramped apartment, looking at the walls and wondering if I was insane. What was I doing? Who did I think I was? There was no guarantee of success, no promise that I would ever get a break. But what other choice did I have? My family had already decided who I was, what I was worth. The truth hit me hard. I wasn't just fighting for a business. I was fighting for my own identity, my right to exist beyond the narrow confines they had imposed on me. And then, just when I thought I had started to gain some sense of control, I received a call that would send me spiraling back into the chaos of my family's world. It was my mother, her voice quivering with desperation. "Olivia," she said, barely able to speak, "we need your help. Your brother can't keep the shop running without your input. The taxes, they're in danger of foreclosure." I felt my stomach drop. The shop, the business that had always been Nathan's, the same shop that had been handed to him without question, while I was dismissed as the dreamer. My heart sank as I processed her words. They were drowning in debt, and now they were looking to me for help. They needed me to come in and save the business, just like they had always expected me to clean up their mess. I sat there for a moment, my mind racing. 1,000 emotions flooded me. Anger, confusion, resentment. For years I had been the one they overlooked, the one they never believed in. And now, when they were in trouble, they expected me to drop everything and come to the rescue. My hands clenched into fists as I held the phone, the pressure building in my chest. Nathan, the golden child, the one who had never had to fight for anything in his life, was finally asking for my help. It was a strange mix of emotions. Part of me felt a twisted satisfaction, a kind of vindication. For once, he needed me. For once, I was the one who held the power. But it didn't make the situation any less painful. The realization that my family only came to me when they had no other options, when they were desperate, hit me harder than I expected. I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly, trying to gather my thoughts. My mind was spinning, torn between the love I still felt for them, despite everything, and the overwhelming need to finally stand up for myself. For once, I wasn't going to be the safety net, the fixer, the invisible one who always picked up the pieces. I gathered my strength and spoke, my voice trembling but firm. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, the words tasting bitter as they left my lips. "But I'm not your backup plan anymore." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear my mother's breath hitch, a soft gasp of disbelief. I could almost picture her, sitting in the same old house, her face wrinkled with worry, trying to process my refusal. I had never said no to her before, not like this. It felt like I had just broken an unspoken rule, like I had just shattered a part of the script that had been written for me. "Olivia," Her voice faltered. You can't just turn your back on your family. We need you. I'm not turning my back on anyone, I replied, my throat tightening. But I need to put myself first for once. I've been ignored, dismissed, and used for too long. I can't keep sacrificing everything I've worked for just because you need me to clean up your mess. There was silence. A long, oppressive silence that filled the space between us. I could feel the weight of her disappointment pressing down on me, but for the first time it didn't crush me. For the first time I felt a sense of liberation, of freedom that came from choosing myself over their expectations. Olivia, she whispered again, her voice now tinged with something I couldn't quite place. Regret? Anger? I don't know what to say. I didn't know what to say either. I didn't know if this was the right decision. I didn't know if walking away was the best choice. But I knew one thing for certain. I couldn't keep being the person they wanted me to be. I had to live for myself, even if it meant severing ties with the family I had always tried to please. I'm sorry, Mom, I repeated softly, and then I hung up. The phone call felt like the final act of a long play. My heart was heavy, but there was a sense of clarity in my decision. I had done what I needed to do. The question now was whether I could build a life on my own, free from the weight of their expectations. Would they ever understand? Would they ever accept me for who I was, not for what they wanted me to be? As I sat there, the silence in my apartment felt deafening. But it was my silence. It was my decision, and I would have to live with it. Could I ever truly escape their hold over me? Or would I always be caught in the tug-of-war between my family and my own sense of self? Plot twist, the turn of the tables. 6 months had passed since I made the decision to walk away. Since then, my life had completely changed. I had poured every ounce of energy, every sleepless night, and all my determination into building my business. What started as a small online retail venture, an idea born from nothing but sheer will, had blossomed into something real. My little business had quickly gained traction. I secured partnerships with major suppliers, expanded my reach through social media, and finally found a place in a market I had once been told I had no right to occupy. It wasn't easy. Far from it. But by the time the end of my first year rolled around, I was looking at a staggering $1.5 million in revenue. It was a dream I had fought for, clawed my way through, and most importantly, believed in when no one else did. I could feel the weight of everything I had built. The long hours, the sacrifices, the doubts, and all the moments of self-reflection when I had wondered if I was doing the right thing. But I had proven myself, and nothing felt sweeter than the taste of success, built on my terms. Then one afternoon, as I was sitting at my desk reviewing the latest projections, I saw the email. It was from Nathan. At first, I thought it was a spam message or something to do with the auto shop. But when I saw the subject line, "Please help Olivia," I froze. I clicked on the message, my heart starting to race, and what I read next shook me to my core. "Olivia," the email began, "I'm in trouble. The auto shop? It's failing. I've been struggling to keep it afloat, and now the debt has reached $700,000. I don't know what to do anymore. The creditors are closing in, and I'm at my wit's end. You're the only one who can save the business. Please. I know I treated you badly before, but I'm sorry. I never understood what you were trying to do. I should have supported you. I didn't believe in you, but I do now. Please, Olivia. I need your help." My hands shook as I read the message over and over again. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. This couldn't be real. Nathan, the same person who had mocked my dreams, who had belittled everything I had worked for, was asking for my help? I felt a strange mix of emotions: vindication, anger, disbelief, and oddly, a sense of triumph. This was my moment, my chance to prove that I had made it on my own, to show that I didn't need to play second fiddle anymore. And yet, there was a part of me that still clung to the idea of family, of duty. Could I really turn my back on them after everything they had put me through? Could I really stand by my success and let my brother's business fail? I sat there for a long time, caught in a battle between my head and my heart. I knew I didn't owe Nathan anything. He had dismissed me, undermined me, and ignored my worth for years. And yet I couldn't escape the part of me that had always been tied to them, my family, despite everything. Before I could respond, I received another call. This time it wasn't from Nathan. It was my mother. "Olivia, We really need you, she said, her voice cracking as if she was on the verge of tears. Nathan, he's in over his head. The shop, the debt, it's all crumbling, and he's panicking. I know things weren't easy, but please, this is your family. We need you, Olivia. I felt the knot in my stomach tighten. The guilt, the pressure, the same weight I had carried my entire life. Was it coming back to suffocate me again? I know you're doing well now, sweetheart, my mother continued. But this is different. He can't do this without you. You're the only one who can save us. The only one who understands business like you do. Please don't turn your back on your family. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. I could feel my resolve weakening, the old patterns of guilt, responsibility, and family loyalty creeping back in. But before I could respond, something unexpected happened. Something that would change everything. In the background, I heard a voice. A familiar voice. A voice I hadn't expected to hear. It was my son, Ethan. "Mom, what are you talking about?" he asked, his voice filled with confusion. "Why are you helping them?" I didn't answer right away. I had always tried to keep him out of the drama, away from the complexities of family obligations. But Ethan wasn't a child anymore. He was smart, observant, and far more aware of the tension between my family and me than I realized. Ethan, who was just 9 years old, walked into the room and stood next to me. "Mom, I don't understand. Why are you still helping them after how they treated you?" I could feel my heart race as he looked up at me with those big brown eyes, filled with an innocence that held a wisdom I hadn't expected. "Ethan," I said, my voice shaking, "this isn't just about me. It's about family." "No, it's not, Mom," he replied, his voice surprisingly steady for his age. "It's about you doing what's best for you. You worked so hard. You didn't need anyone's help. You didn't get any help when you needed it, remember? You didn't ask for them to take care of you. You did it all by yourself." I looked down at him, stunned. My son, my little boy, had just reminded me of everything I had fought for. His words hit harder than anything I had heard from my family. They were like a mirror, reflecting back to me the truth I had been too afraid to admit. I had built something on my own, not because I was forced to, but because I was capable of doing it without anyone's help. The bitterness, the resentment, the fear, it had all been driving me to this point. "I know, sweetheart," I said softly, kneeling down to his level. "I know, but family means—" "Family doesn't always mean helping when they don't help you," he interrupted, shaking his head. "You taught me that it's okay to take care of yourself first." I was speechless. My son had just turned the tables. In a single moment, he had helped me see the truth that I had been too afraid to acknowledge. This wasn't about family loyalty anymore. This was about my own survival, my own well-being. I didn't know how to respond. I had always believed that family came first, that loyalty was paramount. But Ethan had just given me the courage to see things differently. My family had never truly supported me the way I needed. They had never respected my ambitions, my dreams, my hard work. And now, for the first time, I realized that I had to be true to myself, even if it meant walking away from the very people who had always expected me to sacrifice for them. I hung up the phone with my mother, my mind made up. Nathan was on his own. I walked over to my laptop, opened the email from Nathan, and began typing. I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to say, but as I typed, the words became clearer. They were my words, for the first time. "Nathan," I wrote, "I can't help you. Not this time. You treated me like I was invisible, like I was worthless. And now you're asking for my help? I built my success on my own, without any help from anyone. You never believed in me when I needed it most. This is your responsibility now." As I hit send, I felt a strange sense of peace. I had made my decision. Finally, I was choosing myself. Confrontation and establishing boundaries. I called Nathan the morning after I sent the email. It was the hardest thing I'd done, but I needed to be clear. I needed him, and everyone else, to understand where I stood. When he answered, his voice was strained. "Olivia, please, I'm sorry for everything. I know I messed up. The shop, it's my legacy. I can't just let it go under. I need you. I don't know what to do anymore." I took a deep breath, trying to steady the storm of emotions swirling inside me. I wasn't angry anymore, just resolute. I wasn't going to let the years of neglect, of being the family's invisible daughter, dictate my choices anymore. I don't think you understand, I said, my voice steady but firm. I didn't work this hard to just give it all up for you. I had to fight for every cent, every inch of progress in my life. I started from nothing. No connections, no backup, no family to lean on. You didn't see that before. You didn't believe in me when I needed it most. Why should I help you now? There was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear him breathing heavily, trying to find the right words to defend himself. But there was nothing he could say that would undo the years of dismissal, the years of being second to Nathan's golden child status. Olivia, I know I hurt you, he said, his voice quieter now, almost pleading. But please, the shop. It's everything I've known. I don't know how to fix it without you. I can't let it fail. I just can't. I felt the weight of his words, the pressure of the family legacy he carried, but I didn't waver. I know you think that, Nathan, but you never gave me the chance to create my own legacy. You never believed in me enough to see that I wasn't just your backup plan, that I wasn't here to fix your mistakes. I'm not here to be your safety net anymore. I built something for myself, something that's mine, and I'm not giving it up for anyone, especially not for you. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I could hear him shift on the other end, his disappointment palpable. But there was something else too, something that felt like resignation. It wasn't anger or resentment. It was the understanding that I had made up my mind. I wasn't going to be the person who kept cleaning up his mess, who kept bailing him out of the problems he had created for himself. I had learned the hard way that I couldn't keep sacrificing my happiness and my success for people who didn't see me. You don't get it, Nathan said, his voice breaking slightly. I'm your brother. We're family. You can't just walk away from that. You owe me. You owe this family. His words stung, but they didn't have the same power over me anymore. Family. I had spent my entire life living in the shadow of that word. But now I was beginning to realize that family didn't always mean sacrifice, and it didn't always mean giving up your own happiness to keep the peace. You're right, I replied, my voice cold but steady. We are family. But family isn't about always doing what others expect of you. It's about respect. It's about valuing each other. And I've learned the hard way that you never respected me, Nathan. You never saw me for who I am. Just the person who should always be there to clean up your messes. I'm not doing it anymore. There was a pause, a long, uncomfortable silence that seemed to stretch out forever. And when Nathan spoke again, his voice was different. Not angry, not pleading, but something else. A mixture of understanding and resignation. I guess I never really understood, he muttered, almost to himself. I always thought you'd just be there when I needed you. I thought I could rely on you. I let out a long breath, my chest heavy with the weight of this moment. I'm not the person you can rely on anymore, Nathan. I'm the person I rely on now. It was a strange feeling, this new sense of strength, of standing up for myself when it felt like everything around me was pulling me back. But it was also liberating. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to justify my existence, my success, to anyone. And that was powerful. The conversation ended quietly. Nathan didn't argue anymore. He didn't beg me for help again. It was over. And though it stung, though there was a part of me that wished I could still be the one to fix everything, I knew it was the right decision. Later that week, I sat down with my mother. The conversation wasn't any easier. She had heard what had happened with Nathan, and her voice, though calm, was filled with the disappointment I had long feared. You know, she said, family is everything. You can't just walk away from it when things get tough. Nathan needs you, Olivia. We all do. I looked her square in the eye. I've given everything to this family. I've sacrificed my dreams, my happiness, everything for you all. And where has it gotten me? Treated like I'm invisible, like I'm not worthy of respect. I'm done. I'm not going to keep giving up my life for people who don't even see me. My mother's face tightened. She didn't say anything at first, but I could tell she was hurt. Not because she didn't understand, but because she knew I was right. She knew deep down that I had given more than my fair share, and yet she was still trying to make me feel guilty for finally standing up for myself. Olivia, she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. This isn't easy for me to hear, but I'll respect your decision. Just know that you're not alone. The words were meant to be comforting, but they fell flat. Because the truth was, I had always felt alone, even in the presence of my family. But now, I was finally learning to be okay with that. I didn't need them to define my worth. I didn't need their approval. I had found my own path, and that was enough. The silence between us stretched on, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was the silence of boundaries being established, of roles being redefined. And for the first time, it felt right. Open ending, a new beginning. The truth was, I didn't have to save Nathan. I didn't have to carry the weight of the family legacy on my shoulders anymore. My business was thriving, against all odds. I had built something real, something tangible, a brand that spoke of resilience, vision, and the courage to fight for what I believed in. It was more than just a company. It was a testament to everything I had endured and overcome. And I wasn't going to let anyone, especially my family, take that from me. I sat alone in my office one evening, staring out the window as the city lights flickered below. It was quiet, the kind of silence that settles in after the storm has passed, after the battles have been fought, and you're left to pick up the pieces. The walls of this small office, cluttered with plans, prototypes, and the remnants of sleepless nights, felt like home now. It had taken years to feel this way. Years of rejection, of self-doubt, of walking away from everything I once thought I needed. But I had made it. I had finally created a space where I belonged, on my own terms. I leaned back in my chair and let my mind wander, reflecting on everything that had happened. It felt strange, looking back now. It almost seemed like a lifetime ago, when I was still seeking my family's approval, when I was fighting to be seen, to be heard. I thought about the years I spent feeling like an afterthought, like the quiet, forgotten sibling who was never good enough. How many times had I bent myself into shapes that weren't mine, trying to fit into a mold they had created for me? How many nights had I cried myself to sleep, wondering why they didn't see me the way I saw myself? I had spent so much time chasing after their love, their recognition, and their approval. I thought that would bring me peace, but I had been wrong. The truth was, I had always been enough. I had always been worthy, whether they saw it or not. I had just needed to see it for myself first. I asked myself one question as I sat there. What does it mean to be truly successful? Is it about the money, the power, the prestige, the accolades? Or is it about being true to yourself, no matter the cost? I don't have all the answers yet. I don't know if I ever will. Success used to mean a lot of things to me. Things I thought I needed to be happy. I thought it meant having everything, having approval, having recognition. But now success for me feels like peace. It feels like knowing that I no longer need anyone's permission to live my life the way I want. It feels like building something with my own hands and watching it grow, not because someone else told me I could, but because I believed in it when no one else did. I am no longer seeking validation from anyone, not from my family, not from society, not from anyone who doesn't see my worth. I've built my empire, my life, and I'm going to protect it. Not because it's perfect, but because it's mine. I have learned that true success doesn't come from pleasing others or following someone else's blueprint for life. It comes from staying true to who you are and what you believe in, no matter how difficult the journey may be. The hardest part, though, was letting go of the idea that I needed to be something for someone else. Letting go of the expectations, the obligations, the guilt that had weighed me down for so long. But I have learned that sometimes, to grow, we have to shed old skin, to break free from the things that no longer serve us. And in doing so, we make room for something new, something better, something more true to ourselves. As I sat there, I thought about my family. The silence between us had become a comfortable one, a quiet understanding that we were no longer the same. They had their lives, and I had mine. We would never be what we once were, and maybe that was okay. I didn't need to change them or fix them anymore. I had done the hard work of changing myself. Now it was their turn to figure out their own paths. I asked myself another question. Is it worth sacrificing everything for success? And for the first time, I realized the answer wasn't as simple as yes or no. Success to me wasn't about what you gained. It was about what you were willing to let go of. Sometimes it means sacrificing your dreams of fitting into someone else's mold. Sometimes it means walking away from people who can't see your worth. And sometimes it means finding the strength to say, this is me, take it or leave it. I don't have a perfect answer to that question. Maybe no one does. But I do know this. The journey itself is worth more than the destination. The lessons you learn, the strength you discover, and the person you become along the way. That's what makes life worth living. It's not about what you achieve, it's about who you become in the process. So, I leave you with this question. What are you willing to sacrifice for success? And more importantly, what will you refuse to sacrifice? Yourself, your integrity, your peace of mind. The path to true success isn't always clear, but it's always worth it. And it starts with knowing your own worth, whether anyone else sees it or not. What do you think? How do you define success? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? I'd love to hear your thoughts.